In Final Fantasy VII, Cloud's theme has 5 notes and Aerith's has 6. That means that, according to math, Aerith is the more important character. Welcome to Triple Click, where we bring the games to you. We've got a special music-focused episode for you this week where we're going deep inside the soundtrack of one of the greatest role-playing games ever made. So take the next stop from Midgar, put on your headphones, and turn up the volume. Let's do this thing. I'm Kirk Hamilton.
I'm Jason Schreier.
And I'm Maddie Myers. And guess what, you two?
What?
What?
I'm guessing what?
It's Max Fun Drive.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
It is the most wonderful time of the year. And we have a bunch of listeners who probably don't know what that is. And so we're going to try to explain it.
I'm going to be one of those listeners. Maddie.
Oh, this is exciting. This is good.
Well, Jason.
What is Max Fun Drive? It sounds super cool.
It is super cool. So we are part of a podcast network called Maximum Fun, and we've talked a little bit on our prior episodes about how you can go to MaximumFun.org/join, and if you back us, if you become a member at the lowest supporting level, which is $5, or any other level beyond that, you get access to our bonus episodes. And we pretty much left it at that up to now. But Max Fun Drive is this super cool time of year where if you back at a higher level, if you give us $10 a month, for example, or $20 a month, you get these super cool rewards that you don't get if you back at any other time of year. And we'll tell you a little bit more about them later on in the show, but it's just exciting. It's exciting. And I guess we should also note that Max Fun Drive this year was supposed to start on March 13th, but because of COVID-19 and a whole bunch of other considerations, it got delayed a few times.
And because they wanted to wait for Triple Click to really get started.
That's the real reason, yes.
Of course, they wanted to wait until we were on the network and so that people could join and back us and become Max Fun members who are Triple Click fans. But if you were a person who joined at the $10 level on March 13th or afterward, you still get access to all of the same cool shit. So
cool.
That's just another exciting aspect to all of this. It's like the Max Fun Drive that never ends. It's already begun and it will never end. Except it does end on August 7th.
And yeah, it is nice that people support us making this show and support us doing special things for this show, which, speaking of that...
That's right.
This is a special episode of Triple Click.
Yeah.
So Maddie and Jason, I have a question for you. Do you two like music?
I love music.
I love music.
And I love hearing you talk about music, Kirk.
Oh, wow. In that case, I have some very exciting news for both of you and for any listeners who are into music and into Final Fantasy music in particular.
Final Fantasy music.
I know.
Still in my heart.
So this is a special segment. This is a special segment that I've been working on for the past week, and it's going to be pretty cool. And I'm going to just throw it over to myself to take it away with that. But of course, the three of us will be back for one more thing after that. So here comes Hey Listen. Hello everyone, Kirk Hamilton here, and I am very excited to try out this new segment, Hey Listen, where I spend the first part of the show nerding out about video game music. Of course, there are a lot of video games whose music I could talk about for this segment, for the inaugural Hey Listen, but in the end, I'd gotten a lot of emails about a video game that both came out this year and also came out in 1997 with music that a whole lot of people know, and it is music that I love and would love to talk about, so it seemed like a good place to start. What video game soundtrack could I be talking about? What game was released both this year and in 1997? Well, you really only have to hear one collection of 4 notes placed end to end and played up and down the piano to know what we're going to be talking about. That's right, on this inaugural edition of Hey Listen, we're going to be talking about the music from Final Fantasy VII, composed by none other than the great Nobuo Uematsu. Uematsu's score for Final Fantasy VII has been remarkably resilient over the years. It's never really gone away, and so much of it has remained synonymous with the Final Fantasy series, even outside of Final Fantasy VII. But of course, it has returned to the public consciousness in a major way thanks to the very clever reinterpretations and rearrangements in the Final Fantasy VII Remake that came out for PlayStation 4 earlier this year. Now, as many of you probably know, in addition to Triple Click, I host a music podcast called Strong Songs, where I do musical analysis, sort of similar to what I'm going to do on Hey Listen, though a little bit different in some ways too. I'm actually going to run a little trailer for that at the end of this segment, so if you're interested in Strong Songs, you can find out more then. Just a little info on me for anyone who doesn't know. I am a jazz musician by training. I went to school for saxophone performance, played saxophone professionally for a lot of years. These days I write songs, compose music, play a lot of different instruments, and I make Strong Songs as a way to explain music to as many people as possible and to help people hear more in the music that they listen to, because I think that one of the greatest gifts you can get as a musician and from a musical education is learning how to hear more in the music that you're hearing, because there's so much going on if you kind of learn how to tease individual parts out and understand a little bit more of what's going on. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. I think that Final Fantasy VII Remake, which came out earlier this year, offers a really interesting opportunity to reevaluate the music from the original in a similar way to the way that the remake itself offers an opportunity to reevaluate the original game, because as much as it is a remake, it is also kind of, a commentary, a continuation. It's more than just a remake. It is its own thing, and it actually has something to say about the original 1997 game. I think that the score to Final Fantasy VII Remake actually works similarly. So what you're hearing here is the Prelude from Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is a reinterpretation of the Prelude that you already heard, which Nobuo Uematsu wrote actually well before Final Fantasy VII, but which famously accompanies the Final Fantasy VII opening menu. The rearrangements for the remake were handled by a whole bunch of different musicians working for Square Enix. This Prelude was rearranged by Yoshitaka Suzuki, and each rearrangement is more complex, often in ways that are pretty interesting. So if you haven't played Final Fantasy VII Remake, don't worry, I'm not going to spill any major beans on the story, just very little things. I do think that this episode will hopefully help you appreciate some of the cool musical stuff that's going on in the remake a little bit more, and I think it'll also help anyone who finished FF7 Remake and wants to go back and play Final Fantasy VII again, which is something that I'm actually planning on doing, hear that original music in a new way too, because the Final Fantasy VII Remake is in constant conversation with the original Final Fantasy VII, and similarly, the composers are constantly in conversation with Uematsu. They're taking his themes, his motifs, his musical ideas in many of the same ways that Final Fantasy VII Remake rearranges and reinterprets the original game. So just take this Prelude. This is the music that plays on the menu of the original Final Fantasy VII, and it's beautiful sounding and pretty different from the version of it that plays in Final Fantasy VII Remake. While the original version was just a single synthesizer with some delay on it, the remake takes a synthesizer and adds harps with a bunch of reverb and actually kind of removes the delay and creates a much more spacious, just very different sounding vibe. So then, of course, once that full orchestra comes in, or at least the sound of a full orchestra, it is a significantly different sound than how the original game sounded. This is the original game, and this is the remake. So now we're back to the original, and the original is using synthesized instruments that create a very different sound from the remake, which uses samples and, a much bigger, more modern sound. But where the remake relies on modern technology and production techniques, the original game relies on something maybe more powerful: the listener's imagination. So just like you can't really say that Final Fantasy VII is better than Final Fantasy VII Remake or do some kind of really, boring comparison like that, I'm not going to do something like that with the music. I mean, the Final Fantasy VII Remake music could not exist without the original score to Final Fantasy VII, and I think they're in conversation in a really interesting way, and I hope to tease some of that out for you here and also just give you a better appreciation for just how good Uematsu's original music from Final Fantasy VII was. I do think that concept, though, the concept of the listener's imagination, is crucial for understanding just why the original music is so magic and has stuck with us for so long, and it's also central to my understanding of why the original game resonated like it did and stuck in the public consciousness for so long after, graphics technology and modern video game production techniques greatly outpaced it in a lot of ways, at least in terms of the production. So I want to start with that prelude because the prelude is kind of emblematic of Uematsu's style of composition. He'll write these very simple ideas and turn them into something iconic just with kind of a flick of his wrist. It's pretty cool. And the prelude contains a lot of musical information that actually turns up later in the main theme for Final Fantasy VII, which I also want to talk about. So what I love about this music is how exceptionally simple it is and how it takes a very simple framework and then stretches it out in a beautiful way that turns it into something that sounds iconic, even though it's actually built of very basic ingredients. Okay, so we're in the key of C here, which is the most basic key there is. It has no sharps or flats. It's all white keys on the piano in the key of C. And this entire piece of music is built out of one shape. And I would call this a shape because it's just 4 notes put in a kind of a certain order that feels like a shape when you look at it on the piano, and that shape is this. So that shape, that very simple shape, is actually the entirety of the Final Fantasy Prelude motif, which is something that I've always appreciated about it. You play those 4 notes, and then you just play them again up the octave, and then you do that 2 more times, and then you just play it in reverse, back down. Could not be more simple, and yet somehow, just because of the way that Uematsu made it sound and the way that he arranged the notes, it sounds pretty distinct. When you hear those 4 notes put in octaves like that, you think Final Fantasy. So of course, when I say that it's those 4 notes over and over again, I am slightly oversimplifying things. The chords do change, the harmony changes, but the shape remains the same. So I mentioned this is in C major. That first figure plays on a C major chord. The next chord is A minor, which is the relative minor, very common chord in the key of C major, and the shape stays the same, it just moves down, and instead of starting on C, it starts a little bit lower in the key of A minor. Same shape, some of the same notes, and it creates a sense of motion through the tune as we go from C major to A minor. Not an unusual chord progression on its own, but the way that Uematsu threads those notes through it creates something that sounds distinct. Like a lot of pop songwriters before him, Uematsu spends some time going back and forth between C and A minor. Before going to 2 new chords, he goes to an F, which he plays like this. It's pretty cool. And then he plays that same version of the shape over a G chord, which is the 5. He starts on a B, and it sounds like this. So basically, he's been doing these little collections of 4 notes that he then stacks on top of one another in these big ascending and descending scales. And so far, they're going through a very traditional chord progression. He starts on C major, then he goes to A minor. He goes back and forth between those 2 chords for a minute. Then he goes to F major, the 4. And then he goes to G major, the 5. Now, if you don't know a lot of music theory, I'm using some numbers here, and I don't want to freak you out, but I am using these for a reason because they turn up later. They'll be important later. But basically, 1, 6, 4, and 5, they all refer to different chords in the song, and 1, 6 minor, 4, 5, those are like the 4 most common chords ever. They're like parodied at this point. Playing that chord progression is so standard, but because of the way that he's arranged it and the way that he's built that pattern over the chord progression, it sounds pretty distinct. Like, it doesn't sound like he's just playing through, one of the million pop songs that uses this chord progression on the chorus. Of course, there are 2 more chords in this piece of music, and they are the magic chords. They're the less usual ones, and they're played in a shape that doesn't match with the shape that he's been playing over those 4 normal chords, and I think that these 2 chords are the key to this entire piece. They come at the very end, and I'll call it out when you hear them. Here's what they sound like. So this is that 4 chord. And 5. And then... lovely. Okay, so before I explain what those chords are, just to kind of sum up, we've kind of got 4 notes on each chord in this piece of music. The whole thing is just groupings of 4 notes, and we go from the 1 to the 6 minor, eventually to the 4, to the 5. So those are those 4 chords, those really common chords. The last 2 chords are flat 6 major 7 and flat 7 major 7. Just remember those numbers, they're going to be important later, and they sound so cool. It's so tasty, it's so magic sounding, it's beautiful because he's in this really inside kind of normal chord progression, and then he steps outside of it in a very beautiful way, and it kind of just captures something about Final Fantasy, and specifically Final Fantasy VII, the way that it's this in some ways mundane setting, you know, like just a city with industry and all the kind of things you would see in a city, but then there's also magic, and I think those last 2 chords feel to me at least like an introduction of the magic right before the full ensemble comes in. So basically that walk-up is an A flat major 7th to a B flat major 7th to a C, which is actually a fairly common walk-up like in pop and rock music. I actually just did a Strong Songs episode about the Super Mario Brothers World 1-1 music, and there is that's also in C, and there is actually an A flat to B flat to C that happens very quickly in that tune as well. It's this dude right here. It's not an unheard of chord progression, but when you're in a more vanilla zone, like C major to A minor to F to G, when you go to that A flat major 7th, suddenly it just adds an amount of dissonance and kind of lushness to the sound that really opens things up. And I love the way that it works in this prelude in particular. So much great music involves taking familiar elements, common chords, and common chord progressions and knitting them together in a way that sounds distinct. And Uematsu is very, very good at that. As much as he draws on classical music and orchestral traditions, he incorporates a lot of rock and pop and funk and jazz into his soundtracks. And he's not always doing things that haven't been done before harmonically. It's just that he combines them in a way that captures a certain magic that then fits so perfectly with the game that the music is accompanying. I really love this prelude because I think that it sets the whole thing off on a perfect note, so to speak. So let's keep on moving. I really want to talk about the main theme from Final Fantasy VII, which is a crucial piece of music and a very important melody in both Final Fantasy VII and in Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I want you to remember those chord numbers 1, 6, 4, and 5, and then also flat 6 and flat 7, because believe it or not, they're all going to be relevant when talking about the main theme from Final Fantasy VII. It'd be tough to make an argument for any of the main themes and character motifs from Final Fantasy VII as the definitive melody of Final Fantasy VII, but there is definitely a strong argument to be made for this melody, which I've always thought of as Cloud's theme, but is also sometimes described as the theme from Final Fantasy VII. It is a beautiful melody that relies on some very tasty note choices. So I'm going to break down that melody for you, and I actually am also going to draw some interesting connections to the prelude that we already talked about, because Final Fantasy VII is definitely one unified collection of music, and Uematsu was very fond of tying his motifs and chord progressions back to earlier pieces from the game. And there is actually a lot happening in that main theme, in Cloud's theme, that was already happening in the prelude, but we'll get to that in a moment. For starters, I want to talk about one concept that you should understand, and that is a major 7th. So a major 7th is what's called an interval. It's a space between 2 notes. So if you play an E, which is the key this song is in, play an E, that is the 1. If you play a major 7th above that, you're going to play a D sharp. And that space between those 2 notes is a major 7th. The reason that it's a 7th is it is the 7th note of the E major scale. So an interval can really be anything. It can be a second, it can be a fourth, it can be a sixth, and it's just the distance between one note and the other note, in this case an E and another note from an E major scale. So I don't want to get too much more into the theory of it all because you don't really need to know that to appreciate why this music is good. But basically, the major seventh is a really nice sounding interval, but it's also a pretty dissonant interval. And that dissonance, it just kind of has this rub to it. It sounds a little bit, uneven and kind of rough, like it wants to resolve. If you resolve it up to the octave, you can just be playing an octave. That sounds nice and open. That's kind of like if you play a perfect fifth, which is E to B. That's just a nice open sounding interval. Compared to that, the major seventh, much more like kind of sharp sounding, right? Much more dissonant. So Final Fantasy VII has a lot of major sevenths. Uematsu is definitely fond of that interval, and he uses it to add this richness and lushness to his melodies in a few really choice places, in particular in this piece of music. So like I said, we're in the key of E, and let's just look at this melody. So I'm going to play the melody totally divorced from the chords, just the melody on its own in the key of E. This is what it sounds like. It's a nice and somehow classic sounding melody. I really dig this melody, and it's totally in the key of E major. This is just notes from an E major scale played back to back, but the way that they fit over the harmony, the chords that move underneath the melody, is kind of what makes them really shine. So if you look at the first phrase of this melody, it's these 4 notes. And that's actually not that far off from those first 4 notes that play in the figure during the prelude. There's actually only 1 note difference. The prelude sounds like this, and the main Final Fantasy VII theme sounds like this. Obviously, the rhythm is totally different, which gives it a very different sound, but it's kind of built around the same notes, which I don't actually think is an accident. So that different note, that 4th note, that's the major 7th in the key of E, and it has that kind of dissonance that adds a lushness to the sound of this melody that wouldn't be there if it was the exact same 4 notes as the prelude if it went up to the 5th, which is just like a much more neutral sounding note. Or at least it would be if that melody was played just over an E major chord. That would sound like this. Of course, that is not how this piece of music sounds, and that's because the chords change. There isn't just an E major, and it actually goes through a sequence of chords that we already heard in the prelude. So if you remember, the first 2 chords of the prelude kind of went back and forth between 1 and 6 minor, and the first 2 chords of Cloud's theme are also 1 and 6 minor. It goes from E major to C sharp minor. You may also remember in the prelude those 2 magic chords, the ones I told you to remember, the flat 6 and the flat 7th. Well, what should happen in Cloud's theme but the same chord progression? It goes back to E, and then it goes to the flat 6th, to the flat 7th, and then back to E. It's a great melody, and like so many great melodies, it works because of where each note is placed in the chord underneath it. It sounds fine on its own when you play it by itself, but when you put the chords underneath it, everything kind of locks in place, and the specificity of the melody really is driven home. So what would have been a regular major 7th in an E chord becomes a 9th in that C sharp minor. What would have been a 5th, just a kind of boring sounding 5th in the key of E, becomes a major 7th when you go down to a C chord. And not only are those chords really bringing out the best attributes of the melody, they're also echoing the chords that were already established in the prelude, tying Final Fantasy VII's soundtrack together in one of very many cool ways. When it came out this year, Final Fantasy VII Remake took a lot of Uematsu's original themes and rearranged them, reorchestrated them, and brought them into the 21st century in ways that are pretty effective a lot of the time, and especially work in the context of a remake, even if I actually think that the original tracks totally stand on their own. I think that's by design, and it's kind of true of Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy VII itself. So I mentioned imagination earlier, and I want to kind of expound on that a little bit now. The magic to me of Final Fantasy VII has always been the way that the game had this kind of significant gulf between what you were seeing on the screen and what you were imagining in your mind. The character portraits and the high-res parts of the game let you see what this should look like and what the movie version of it would look like, but the game itself never really looked like that, and so as a result, the game kind of lived in the player's imagination in a way that gave it a level of magic that just could never be captured or recreated on a screen, no matter how talented the artists and the animators, because it's the power of imagination. I mean, it's just the magic of whatever you picture in your mind as what Midgar would really look like. I think that's true of the soundtrack as well. A lot of Uematsu's music sounds like an orchestra. You can kind of hear what it would sound like, but it's not an orchestra, it's synthesized instruments. And that's actually also true when it sounds like a rock band, but it isn't a rock band. This is one of my favorite tracks from Final Fantasy VII, the boss fight music that's typically called Fight On, and it rules so hard even though it doesn't really sound like a real rock band. Oh man, I really love this track. I love the clarity of the bass. Next time you're listening to that track, just really listen to the bass. Focus on those bass lines and what the bass is playing, because there's some really killer bass lines in there. It doesn't sound like a real rock band, right? Like, you imagine Rush, playing a kind of rock out prog rock thing on stage in your mind's ear when you hear this, but it doesn't actually really sound like Rush. It sounds like synthesized instruments. So there's just this great thrill when you're playing Final Fantasy VII Remake and you get to the Airbuster fight, and what music should come on but a full-throated, real instrument ripping version of Fight On that sounds like everything you ever imagined when you heard that music back in 1997 or whenever you first played Final Fantasy VII. This rearrangement is credited to Tadayoshi Makino, and I mean, if you're gonna get hyped up for a boss fight, I don't know of any music that could get you more hyped up than this. So obviously that rules, but I think that rules for a very specific reason. It rules because it's taking something that we imagined for so long and turning it into this totally bodacious, ridiculous, fully fledged version of it. Like, that recording would rule on its own. I mean, it rocks super hard, but it rules way harder because it's existed in our imaginations for so long, and now we finally get to hear it that way. And I know there have been like a million bands that have played Fight On in various arrangements, but having it actually play in a Final Fantasy game, I mean, seeing Cloud whip out his Buster Sword alongside Tifa and Barret while that guitar riff comes in, that's a very special thing, and that's something that Final Fantasy VII Remake does exceptionally well. I think that all of the composers who worked on this did a fantastic job. Because, like I said, Final Fantasy VII Remake isn't just a straight-up remake, even though it has remake in the title. Kind of a reinterpretation, and the music is approached very similarly. Sometimes that means taking an existing theme from the original game and rearranging it, or even mixing it with other motifs in some pretty cool ways that are very creative and kind of just as creative as other parts of Final Fantasy VII Remake are with the story. But other times it means playing it really straight and just giving people a rich, lush reinterpretation of a tune that they already know. I would say that is certainly true of the first time that you hear Cloud's theme in full. This was rearranged by Shotaro Shima, and it's played in this grandiose way that really sounds like Pomp and Circumstance or something. I mean, it sounds like this big homecoming because it really is for so many players. You're walking out as Cloud, you're in the Undercity, you have like full control for the first time, and you're just kind of marveling at what this looks like. I mean, holy cow, look up there. It's like the saucer of the upper city above me, and I'm just walking around in this fully realized version of Midgar. So what else should be playing on the soundtrack but a straightforward, beautifully realized version of Cloud's theme? And even with the new, richer orchestration, the bigger sounds, the real sounding instruments, and the new counter melodies that they're adding, it's still that fundamental melody and those fundamental chords that we talked about that make it so strong and that make it land the way that it does. This is it. This musical moment, this is when the game brings you home. a lot of pretty profound and surprising ways, Final Fantasy VII Remake was actually concerned with re-evaluating and rewriting the legacy of Final Fantasy VII, but sometimes you just gotta give the people what they want, and when it comes to the music, the composers knew that at this moment, it was time for something straightforward. Of course, that's not always the case. Cloud's theme, that collection of notes, just that little melodic motif, is everywhere in Final Fantasy VII Remake, more so than in the original game. If you play through this again, if you've already played it, or if you're going to play it, keep an ear out for it. You'll hear it all over the place. I mean, variations of it, minor key versions, dark versions, bright versions, callbacks. I mean, it's just a constant thing, and it's really fun to listen for because it's woven so thoroughly throughout the game. There is, however, another character motif that's arguably even more important for Final Fantasy VII and for the remake, and it is the most beautiful piece of music, at least to me. It's my favorite piece of music from Final Fantasy VII, and we gotta talk about it, so let's get into it. Okay, so that prelude, that was built out of 4 notes, right? These 4 notes. And Cloud's theme was built out of 5 notes, these 5 notes. The final theme that we're going to be talking about on Hey Listen has 6 notes. 3 going up, and 3 coming back down. I mean, I couldn't do a discussion of Final Fantasy VII music without talking about Aerith's theme. Aerith's theme is so important to Final Fantasy VII, partly because Aerith herself is such an important character, also because the music accompanies some of the most impactful and meaningful moments in the original game, and also because it's just a gorgeous piece of music. So while there's a lot of beautiful stuff going on throughout the entire piece, for me, Aerith's theme is defined by those first 6 notes and the 2 chords that accompany them. I think it's a really beautiful motif. It's so simple, just like a lot of Uematsu's music, but it's so instantly iconic. 3 notes up, 3 notes down. Perfect. So those 6 notes actually perfectly outline the first 2 chords of the song. The first 2 chords of the song are D major and A minor, and the first 3 notes are just a D major arpeggio going up to D, and then the second 3 notes are just an A minor arpeggio going from C to A to E. Now this piece is in D major, which means that those first 2 chords are 1 major to 5 minor. Now this is actually a chord progression that I just recently talked about on Strong Songs. I did an episode on Sufjan Stevens' song Chicago, which also heavily relies on 1 major to 5 minor. It's a beautiful, evocative sound, and I think it's a huge part of why Aerith's theme is so enchanting and instantly grabs you. Another really famous example of 1 to 5 minor is actually in Coldplay's hit song Clocks. The first 2 chords of that song, also 1 to 5 minor. So 1 to 5 minor is a sound that a lot of composers know will get you that ethereal sound that is very appropriate for Aerith for a lot of reasons. It's a great theme on its own and definitely one of the greatest video game melodies ever written, but I really like what the composers do with it in the remake. Something that Maddie and I actually talked about back on the Beans cast on various other episodes where we talked about Final Fantasy VII Remake was the fact that neither of us actually loved Aerith as a character in the original Final Fantasy VII. She's just not very fleshed out, and while that's true of a lot of Final Fantasy VII and your imagination has to do heavy lifting, it really has to do some heavy lifting with Aerith to get you to care as much about her as you're supposed to. Fortunately, that music really helps. I mean, the music is basically Aerith's character to me, at least until I played Remake and I met this new version of Aerith. So Cloud has met Aerith a few times before he really has his first meaningful interaction with her, and she already just seems like more of a person. It's partly the performance, the animations, the extra writing, how much more fleshed out it all is, but you just get a sense of her as this playful person with a whole inner life who exists on her own and has her own challenges that are actually going to go on to be really important parts of the game. And as Cloud gets to know her, he follows her home and you get to see where she lives, and it's this beautiful corner of Midgar. It's greener than anything you've seen in the game, and you know where this is going. You know so much about Aerith because you've already played Final Fantasy VII, and that's when they introduce this version of her theme that's so much more elaborate. It doesn't even really play the main theme. It hints at it, and you'll hear various instruments in the ensemble piping up with different parts of that 6-note motif, all carefully rearranged by Yoshinori Nakamura, but it doesn't fully arrive for quite some time. You see her home and her things, you get this sense of her and this place that she lives, and then the theme finally comes in. It feels so rich and drawn out, with new ideas for a new take on a beloved character. And listeners, let me tell you, the first time I heard this, as I walked around Aerith's house, it kind of wrecked me. There are a lot of amazing moments in Final Fantasy VII Remake, but this moment, going home with Aerith and hearing this version, Nakamura's rearrangement of Uematsu's original theme, this was just an unbelievably beautiful moment for me. I was not expecting it to hit me as hard as it did, and it was entirely because of the music that it had that effect. Final Fantasy VII Remake would have been totally fine if it had just straight up remade the Midgard chapters of Final Fantasy VII, and the music would have been fine if it had just been these fleshed out orchestral versions of the original music, but by doing more, it's just so much more special. All of these composers that Square Enix brought in to reimagine and rearrange this music did more than just flesh it out. They created all these interesting stories, just musical stories that they're telling through the sounds that play as you're playing the game. Sometimes that's as simple as a more elaborate version of Aerith's theme that really beautifully reflects how she's a much more elaborate character in the remake. Other times they're cleverly mixing motifs to explain what's going on using music. In a really important scene in the game, Aerith and Cloud are having a conversation, and the music in the background is taking Cloud's theme and Aerith's theme and interweaving them in this gorgeous way. You hear it? I mean, that is pretty cool. Final Fantasy VII Remake is so much more than just a remake, and that makes it so much more interesting than it would have been otherwise. I know it had faults, I know there are things we can complain about, I know we don't know when the next one is coming out, but I can't help but love this game, and the music is at the heart of why. I loved Final Fantasy VII Remake because I love Final Fantasy VII, and I love Final Fantasy VII because of the music. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you liked this first edition of Hey Listen. I certainly had a good time making it. We're going to take a break, and then I'll be back with Maddie and Jason to tell you some about Max Fun Drive, and of course, to each share our one more thing. Hello, Triple Click listener. Kirk here, and if you liked that analysis, I think you'll probably like my music podcast, Strong Songs.
Strong Songs.
On each episode of Strong Songs, I pick a different famous song and take it apart, then put it back together again, all with the goal of helping you hear your favorite music in a different way. I've covered a ton of songs ranging from the Beach Boys' God Only Knows,
Chord inversions, contrapuntal vocal arranging,
to Radiohead's Paranoid Android,
through composed songwriting, the Dorian Mode,
to ABBA's Dancing Queen,
juxtaposition of harmony and lyrics,
Miles Davis's So What,
modal jazz harmony,
Satisfied from Hamilton,
intermixing character motifs,
and Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody.
strategic Brian May deployment.
I've been having a ton of fun making the show, and you don't have to be a musician to appreciate it. It is made for musicians and non-musicians alike. You can find the show at strongsongspodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. I hope you give it a listen. Thanks.
Popping back into the show here to tell you a little bit more about Max Fun Drive.
Ooh,
okay.
Max Fun Drive.
I love information about Max Fun Drive.
Yes,
That's my favorite thing.
yes. Okay, so of course you could just go to MaximumFun.org/join and you would get all of the information that I'm about to tell you. But before I say that, I just want to emphasize that we know this is a very strange time to be doing a fundraiser of any kind. We're very aware of that. It's part of why Max Fun Drive is super chill this year. Ordinarily in years past, it's 2 weeks of just mega hyped Max Fun Drive fundraising.
Ordinarily, we threaten your families if you don't contribute.
We've never been on the network. We don't know what happens,
Right,
but
right.
maybe that was going down. No, it wasn't. Of course not. So this week, this year's 4 weeks. It's much more chill, and we just want to emphasize that we know some of you aren't in a financial position to support the show right now, and that's totally fine. You can always share the show or talk about the drive on your social media, whatever you feel comfortable doing. We see you. We appreciate you.
Yeah, that's still just as much support is to share, tell your friends about Triple Click. That's worth just as much to us. We appreciate anything you can do, even if you can't financially support us.
Absolutely. And if you are a person who's able to invest in the show, we appreciate it so much. Obviously, we are an independent artist-owned show. That's what Max Fun as a network is all about. That's what you're supporting. You're supporting us directly, and that's really, really important and valuable. So anyway, MaximumFun.org/join. All of those gifts are there. Most of you already know that the $5 level gets you that bonus content.
Yeah, bonus Beans cast, including The Last of Us 2 at the end of this month.
That's right. You get the Beans cast at every level, but you obviously get it at 5. But if you back at 10, y'all, you get to pick a pin, and probably you will be choosing the Triple Click pin.
Hopefully.
Because it freaking owns.
It's so cool.
Definitely rules, and I want one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
we all have to get them.
black and gold. It has a controller on it. It looks sick as hell. So you're going to click on that. You're going to get your Triple Click pin. And then every time you gaze upon it, you're going to think to yourself, yes, I am supporting Triple Click at $10 per month every month. And you feel great about it. Mm-hmm. And if you were, for example, to bump it all the way up to $20 a month.
Just as a for instance.
This is actually really cool. Maximum Fun's theme this year is games, which is not normally the theme.
They were waiting for us to do the Maximum Fun Drive. That's why they needed...
they were waiting for us to come in. They were waiting for us for the drive. They were waiting for us to do this theme. Who can say if that's true or not? It's up to you, listener, to decide. So you get the Max Fun game pack if you join at $20, which is playing cards that have been illustrated with art that has Easter eggs that are references to the show, and you also get a little bag of dice. And so if you've been chilling out during COVID and you really want to learn some magic tricks with dice and cards, maybe you want to play some Texas Hold'em like Jason and I like to do.
Yeah,
whatever.
all the dice you use in Texas Hold'em. Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's what the playing cards are for. Whatever.
Okay.
So anyway, that's what you get at $20. So we'll tell you more about the other gifts in the coming weeks, but we just want to emphasize once again, we're grateful for any level of support that you may be able to give to us.
Thank you all. We love you all.
It is super cool to be making our own show and to be supported by our listeners. It's the kind of thing that makes us want to do things like extra work on special bonus music episodes and things like that. So, it does make it way cooler to just put a ton of work into the show and make it really great that we own it and that it's just us and all of you supporting us. That is really, really cool. So thank you so much to everybody who already supports the show. We really, really appreciate it.
We really do.
Big thanks.
And we're back. Enough of that music nonsense. Let's talk about other things, specifically one more thing a piece, the one thing that we each bring into the show to talk about each week. Maddie, what is your one more thing this week?
Okay, so it was my birthday last week.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
Thank you.
Maddie.
You're a little late, but thank you. So I wanted Ring Fit Adventure, which I've talked about on the show before, and now I have my very own copy of Ring Fit
Nice.
Adventure,
Did who got it
of
for
my
you?
mother. Noted
Nice.
Triple Click listener, my mom.
Nice,
She found
nice.
me at Ring Fit. She dropped it off at my house. No contact, COVID style.
Was it just like you came out of your house and Ring Fit Adventure was just sitting there, like with no
Yes.
explanation on
And
your,
it was
on your front
wrapped.
porch?
And I had a text from my mother being like, it's on the back porch. And I
Nice.
like
Oh,
went
that's
out and there was a
great.
wrap present. Yeah, it was great. This is the time in which we live.
I just want to point out that I have been dropping links every single time I've seen it to like online.
You have.
Just for you.
That's true.
Maddie.
You've really been on it.
You've really been on it, and I appreciate it, Jason, because I have wanted
But
this.
I should have been sending them to your mother.
You should have been texting them to my mom. I don't know what you were even doing. But anyway, she figured it out.
Shout out to Maddie's mom.
So, Maddie, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I really like it. I will quickly say I'm enjoying it a ton, but I want to also emphasize just a little shout out to Just Dance. I know I'm cheating by mentioning multiple One More Things, which is a classic Kirk
Yeah,
Hamilton
you can
move.
compare them.
But
Cool people do that all the time.
I just want to say, I feel like Just Dance is also really good. And it's not to say that I don't think Ring Fit deserves being the exercise fad that it has become during COVID. And it's only been a few days. I'm already really enjoying it. And it definitely helps with like strength training exercises. There's a lot of strength training stuff in Ring Fit that is obviously not a part of Just Dance. Just Dance is purely aerobics. That's what's fun about it. However, I do feel like I get my heart rate up more consistently with Just Dance, and that is just a huge benefit of that game that in Ring Fit you don't really get. It's more of a strength training, and then you do sort of intervals of aerobics.
Anaerobic exercise.
Yeah, and that's cool too. But if you're somebody who's maybe getting a little tired of Ring Fit, or perhaps you're somebody who can't find a copy of Ring Fit, I just want to give a little shout out to Just Dance as like a cross training methodology for a time period when none of us can go to the gym, and this is all we have, and it's been really fun. So yeah,
Maddie, I just want to say that by this time in like 2 months, I expect your arms to look like Abby's from The Last of Us.
Yeah, like flump.
God, I freaking hope so. Abby is #goals. Those arms are great.
No kidding. Good Lord. Nice. Well, I'm the only one who doesn't have Ring Fit. I might have to get it. It seems like it'd be fun. I've been enjoying my sort of...
pretty
Just keep an eye on your G chats then.
Right. Jason will definitely keep me posted.
Well, because I see every time Wario64 on Twitter is like Ring Fit Adventure is now in stock.
That's a good follow, by the way. If you want to get some hot gaming deals.
He is definitely on top of the hot gaming deals. So speaking of hot gaming, I guess this is a deal. It's a new game anyways. Jason, tell me about your One More Thing, which I'm also playing, and I'm excited to talk to you about.
It's not actually a new game, but new port of a game.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's on the only console that it really was meant to be on this whole time.
That exists?
Yes.
Well, it's the only console that exists.
Longtime Kotaku Split Screen listeners will know that I have obsessed for a long time about Crosscode, which is a SNES style action RPG is the best way to describe it. That has like these great spritey graphics, and it's very Zelda inspired. It's got like two-dimensional like action combat. You kind of shoot bullets and also slash with your sword, and then it's got a ton of puzzles, and that's the real reason that I love it, is because it's got so many clever like bullet puzzles where you have to throw projectiles at switches and do all sorts of incredibly clever things. The dungeons, by the way, are amazing. Wait till you get to the first dungeon, Kirk. You will enjoy it quite a bit, I think.
One thing I like about the puzzles in this game is it looks like an SNES game, but there are like perspective puzzles almost, because you have to climb to different
verticality.
heights.
Yeah.
And so it takes a minute to get your head around it, at least at the beginning. I've played, probably 5 hours of the game so far. And there really is this learning curve where it's like, well, it's totally flat and you're moving around in that very SNES, whatever, Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana kind of way. But then you climb up on a thing and you have to actually think in terms of, I need to get up here and get down there. Like at the beginning, you're chased by those robots and you have to run to get away. And it's like, oh God, wait, where can I climb? I'm going to get killed. And it's pretty cool.
Cool.
I like how they play with that.
Yeah, well, so one of the cool things is when I talk about puzzles, I'm not just talking about like puzzles in dungeons, because pretty much every map in the game is its own puzzle in that there are chests hidden everywhere and secrets hidden everywhere, and you have to like find vertical paths to get there, and there are a lot of really cool things that you can do with the game. But I haven't even mentioned the big concept, like the hook of the game, which is that this world that you are playing in, it's called Cross Worlds, and it's actually a fictional MMORPG within the concept of the game. So everybody around you, or everybody around you, is either an NPC or a player inhabiting this body. And the concept is that it's an actual real physical place in the world of this game, but you control like a virtual body that's in it, or not even a virtual body, like an artificial robot body. And so the players talk about how they like feel the senses as they're playing. It's like the ultimate Ready Player One experience, except without all the shitty references. And I love this game to death. I have for a long time. I actually played the bulk of it on PC when it came out a couple of years ago, thanks to Mike Fahey recommendation. Shout out to Mike Fahey, former Kotaku colleague of ours, still at Kotaku. Now it has just come to consoles, including the Switch, which, Kirk, I know you have been waiting for a long time, and Maddie, you have as well, since both of you I've convinced to play it. The big downside right now is, as of this recording, the Switch version is a little bit janky. It's got a lot of frame rate hitching. It's got a lot of menu lag. It's still very much playable, and I've been playing a ton of it. But I would wait for a patch if you don't mind waiting. The caveat being that by the time this episode is live, there might already be a patch that fixes this stuff. So hopefully that is the case. But man, this game, so I put in many, many hours on PC, but I am still starting from the beginning and playing it all over again on Switch. I'm up to the second dungeon now on my Switch. I'm planning on playing through the entire thing again because it is that good. It is an incredible game. It's one of those games that just like those of you who have listening to the show know that sometimes I just obsess over games like Outer Wilds or Return of the Obra Dinn. All of us do. And sometimes there's just a special game that you gotta obsess over. This qualifies, so I highly recommend that everybody out there go and play it.
Yeah, I like what I've played. I like the vibe a lot. It just has this sort of really pretty shopping mall vibe, sort of, at least at first, in a way that I really like.
Yeah.
You know, because it's this island that was just created to have all these avatars, which are made of this stuff called instant matter. I recommend anybody playing this game go and read the codex, which is both cleverly written and it has like funny jokes.
There's a lot of clever writing in the game, a lot of groan-worthy puns, a lot of like MMO references, a lot of fourth wall breaking, but it's not really fourth wall breaking because it's actually a game. So it's players in the game talking about
which can be tricky. There are times where it feels like you're playing an MMO. At least at first I was like, oh, so it's a bunch of MMO quests. And they're saying to you, well, don't worry about it. This is all part of this bigger story. You know, you're finding out who your character really is. But you do have to go grind in the MMO for a little while to learn who you are.
So just at the beginning. So most of the quests I found, especially playing the game the second time, most quests you just do kind of organically as you're playing through, and also you definitely don't have to do them all. Like I would recommend not doing all the side quests if you're jumping into this game for the first time. Just like any MMO, like you don't want to do all the side quests when you play an MMO.
Yeah, I like it though. I am waiting for the patch now because I played enough and the menu lag was just kind of bugging me because it's like 5 or 6 seconds. You press the quest button and then I was just like, oh man, like normally that stuff when it's a good game, I'm like, whatever, I'll get around it. But I was like, this is taking forever and I know they're going to patch it, or at least it seems very patchable.
Well, hopefully that's patchable. The problem with this game is always that it's written in HTML5 code, so apparently it was really difficult to get it ported on consoles in the first place, so who knows.
Bless them for putting it on Switch because that does feel like it's natural habitat. Like it really feels like it belongs on Switch.
But I hope they're able to fix that stuff. But yeah, man, I love this game to death, and I'm looking forward to both of you playing more. Hopefully once it's patched. One other quick thing is that I am also playing the new Paper Mario game, but I'll talk more about that next week because that just came out this week, so people might be wondering.
My thing is not it's a video game, but it's not a video game. So my thing is Tabletop Simulator, which is amazing. And I finally used with my board game group, and I'm like totally over the moon over how incredible it is. And I'm sure a lot of listeners who knew about it and knew that I played lots of tabletop games and had a group and had been playing, like I had talked about, you know, the digital, like the video game version of Sentinels of the Multiverse and the video game version of Lords of Waterdeep that we'd played. And I talked about like what it's like to kind of play these video game versions that do so many calculations for you, and the pacing is so different, and adjusting our tabletop group. And I'm sure there are people out there, this is all for all of you who are sitting there thinking, dude, why doesn't this guy's group get Tabletop Simulator and use that instead? Well, we finally did that. Sean, one of the guys in my group, was like, let's do Tabletop Simulator. And we're all kind of like, oh, that looks kind of janky and intimidating, and I don't know. But it's not actually janky or intimidating. It's just amazing. It is a open-ended game that is basically a framework for you to build any tabletop game within it and then play the game online with your friends. And it's actually very, very simple. We played a game of Root last night, which is a tabletop game that I absolutely love. I've talked about it a lot on Split Screen.
It's the one with the animals.
The one with the animals. It's this very complicated war game, but it's really, really good. And you can get, like, in the workshop, people will make mods, essentially, where you download...
like a Root-alike, and then you just download that. Yeah.
Interesting.
So this is actually just Root. Like, it is Root. It's all the art and all the cards and everything, which is a whole thing. And there's a big complicated thing with Tabletop Simulator where, like, IP is kind of complicated because what people are doing is not clearly just like it's copyright infringement, especially if you're taking like a Star Wars game and recreating it. But a lot of times the creators don't care. Some creators like straight up will just be like, it's fine. It's like an ad for the game. You know, like my group, we own Root. Like we own all the expansions. And we would also gladly pay for
a digital version. Yeah.
Right.
Or like if it was through Tabletop Simulator, like I feel like that's kind of the future of this because it was so great. The experience was amazing. It was like the whole game, all the expansions, it auto sets up. But past that, you just have a board and all the cards and you just play. So it's like the game doesn't do anything for you. You just move the cards around and the pieces around. Like it's just like you're playing the game, which for some reason just felt revolutionary as we were playing it. It's the way that in VR, when you reload a gun in VR and you have to like pull back the thing and put the thing in and you're like, whoa, I like have to actually do the thing. Playing a board game on a computer in this way where it's like, well, I got to move the card or your turn ends. And I was like, well, my turn is over. And I just had to say that to everybody. And it was just the next player's turn.
Because anyone can just move anything at any time. That's
right. And if you're like, oh, wait, I messed up. Oh, I forgot to do a thing. You just do it just like you're playing the game. And
that's kind of like a weird mental switch because you're so used to things being automated on a computer.
Right. But it sounds better though.
Yeah.
Yes, it was fantastic. And like we're going to definitely keep using it. It's like every game exists in this in some capacity.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
I recommend it
awesome.
so highly.
Maybe the three of us should play a board game.
I think that would be really, really fun. I think there's a lot of games we could do that with that would be cool. And while I don't recommend learning a game as complicated as Root in Tabletop Simulator, only because it's much easier to be sitting there with the rulebook because that game is very complex. You could, but I think if you have a group and you play together, you probably already know Tabletop Simulator, but if you don't, man, I mean, I can't recommend it more highly. It is absolutely wonderful. Like, just incredible. I loved it so much.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. And it's free, right? You just get it for free?
It's not free. You have to pay for it, but it's like $20 or something. Like the basic thing is. A lot of the downloads are not paid. Some of them are, but you have to buy Tabletop Simulator itself. It's a piece of software. So everybody does need to own it.
Each player has to own a copy?
Yes. You have to all own it and play it together.
Friend.
But it's not super expensive, and it's totally worth it considering how many games it contains.
Yeah, if you're if you're going to get your money's worth out of it. Kirk, did I tell you that I played Betrayal at the House on the Hill? I don't remember if you like that game.
Oh, I love that game. Did you play the legacy version or just the base game?
No, just the regular version. We played it.
Base game is fun.
While I was on my trip to Connecticut, we played it. And even my friends who are like not board game people actually got into it.
It's a very, very fun game.
So before we go, let's talk about Max Fun Drive a little more.
Yes, one last plug.
Maddie, take us away.
Sure. So we just want to say once again, thank you so much to everybody who's already joined and become a member. And we love you and appreciate you.
Yes,
but
thank you.
also super double thank you to folks who are hopping over the fence and joining us now and participating in the drive because that's really great. And that is how we are able to keep making this show, have it be independent, have it be the show we want it to be, have Kirk spend days and days telling us about Final Fantasy music.
Just for example.
Etc. That's the stuff you love. So just head on over to MaximumFun.org/join and check that stuff out.
So, special announcement.
Take it away.
We will be streaming a video game at some point in the near future. The three of us are going to get together and live stream a game, and we will be talking and probably reading your comments and answering your question. Stay tuned.
Something like that.
Stay
very fun.
tuned.
It's going to be great.
We'll be playing live games for all of you in the near future. And that is it for this week's episode.
That's it.
It is.
Kirk, Maddie, goodbye.
I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Triple Click is produced by Jason Schreier, Maddie Myers, and me, Kirk Hamilton. I edited and mixed the show and also wrote our theme music. Our show art is by Tom DJ. Triple Click is a proud member of the Maximum Fun Podcast Network, and if you like our show, we hope you'll head over to MaximumFun.org/join and consider becoming a member. Doing so helps support us and gets you access to an exclusive Triple Click episode each month. Find us online at tripleclickpodcast.com, on Twitter at tripleclickpod, and send email to tripleclick@maximumfun.org. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned.
Audience supported.